Welcome to the Find and Follow podcast, where we believe life is in the light, spiritual darkness is the enemy, and finding and following Jesus is the best way to live life. I'm Scott Langhans, your host, joined today by Craig. Hi, Craig.
Good to be here.
And Kyle. Welcome, Kyle.
Hey.
So we are hanging out. Thanks for tuning in wherever you find yourself, at work or driving the kids around or doing some housework or taking a walk.
Working out.
It's
a good workout. I listened to last week's at the gym yesterday morning.
Is that a motivator, like as a workout mode, or is it like a distractor? How did that go as a workout thing?
Yeah, it's like a distractor.
Okay.
I mean, I listen to a lot of sermons and podcasts and stuff while I'm working out.
I'm not a big podcast workout
I don't
listener.
need like a pump up music jam. I don't know.
Oh,
But you're doing like 17 million miles. I'm just sitting on a machine or squatting or benching. Like it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, I do need some something to maybe get lost in the thoughts for about 90 minutes sometimes.
That doesn't help you, like thinking through this like leadership dynamic or something in a podcast?
Yeah, it probably would. Maybe I should try it. Maybe I should give it a whirl. I don't know. But I just appreciate you tuning in wherever you're at. Maybe you're working out.
I like to use it as like, I feel like I'm learning. I feel like it's like.
You're growing your mind, you're growing your body.
There you go.
You're getting swole everywhere.
Everywhere.
Okay. Maybe it's it. I don't know. Craig, you working out, listening to podcasts?
No, when Cindy and I do our workouts, we visit. So
Chit-chat.
just the other day, 2 days ago, we went hiked up the hill and had a bunch of elevation gain and 2.5 miles and a great time together. So that's what we do.
Great job.
Nice. Yeah. Well, see, like Amy and I ride bikes. It's hard to chit-chat sometimes.
Exactly.
We're
We're walking.
because it's sunny days or for bike days, and so the weather has turned for the good. It's really nice out there.
Yeah.
So
That wind goes away.
It's going to be
perfect.
75 this Sunday for the hike.
I know. It's super great.
That's great.
Winds are perfect as long as you go one way.
There you go.
You get that tailwind going, you feel like you're Lance Armstrong.
And then you have somebody
The
else
doped
come
I was
pick you
going to
up.
say, you're doping it
The
up.
doped version.
And then
It's
somebody
winds.
comes pick you up and throw your bike in the back of their truck or something. Like, what do you? You're only going to
Sometimes.
go one way.
Yeah, we got to mix it up. We have different routes, and so yes, a lot of times we will like, hey, will you pick me up in Coeur d'Alene? Literally, we'll just run to places or bike to places just to make it not a loop or not an out and back.
Right.
Because we live in a great spot and we have tons of routes, and we've ran a bunch and biked a bunch of them. And one of my things that I try to do is always have a new route. So even if it's a 100-foot section or I cut down this street instead of that street I normally do, then I just feel like it's new. All these little mind tricks that I don't know, fun. Exploring different places. So,
Yep.
Yeah, getting the bike out, riding outside. We've done that several times already. So I'm excited to get some sunburns. Right?
I got a couple. I don't think I got burnt, but I got some sun on vacation.
You
for
did
sure.
pretty good.
I did.
In 90-some weather.
93 most of the days was the high.
And down in Arizona where the angle of the sun's a little steeper than it is here in the
Yeah.
Northwest.
The UV index a little higher.
Don't get me started on
What
vitamin
was
D.
it? When we were in Hawaii, it was 10, 11, 12.
I don't know.
We were paying
I was
attention
way too
to it.
busy laying at the pool to look at the UV index.
No.
Right.
Yeah, we were just trying to avoid getting sunburn because that meant sun damage, which
Yeah.
means skin cancer.
Yeah, I did good. Lindsay, one of Lindsay's favorite things, my wife Lindsay, one of her favorite things to do on vacation is just chill. Like that, to just lay by the pool and get sun. So I'm always like, okay, I'll be in the shade for a little bit longer.
How long do you get how long do you get in that mode? And then you're like,
I normally get a book.
okay.
And so I'm pretty good. I'll dip in the pool. Like my thing was like I'll read my book in the pool.
Oh, that's
you know?
money.
Side, stand in, dip in there a little bit.
Floaty?
I didn't. And Lindsay was on the floaty. I'm normally like side deck, full body in, leaning on the side. So I can read a book. I was reading Tiger Woods, still in his biography, reading about Tiger Woods. Fascinating. So
Hero.
yeah, the GOAT.
Hero.
But it's like covers his whole life, so it's a lot of stuff.
What's your prediction? If for people listening and they don't know, Tiger Woods got in a car wreck, like hurt legs, knees.
Oh, he's done.
He's out.
He's
Career's
done.
done.
He's not going to win again.
No, but he's going to play again.
I don't know.
Okay.
He's not going to be competitive again.
So do you think he would play even though
I think if he can, he
knows
will.
He can't be competitive.
Yeah, he'll try, but
He
yeah.
might win the John Deere Classic.
He's done. Yeah.
The
done.
John Deere Classic.
That's a tournament.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll take any sponsor.
Oh yeah. You want to pay for it?
Any
Look
bank,
there.
yeah.
Anyway, so you guys are on vacation. You did play some golf.
I
though.
did, yeah.
putt around. That's what you do in Arizona.
Yep.
You hang out with old people and you golf, right? Those are the two things.
And you lay by the pool.
Yep.
That's about it. And eat a lot of food. We do like to Yelp it up.
Oh, let's
and
go.
go to quite a few different restaurants. Ordered like Uber Eats to the house when we watched the Zags lose.
And it's got to be more than 3 on Yelp, right? It's got to be 4 or 5.
Oh yeah.
4.5.
There's
Four
a
and a
whole
half.
there's a whole thing. I mean, it depends on how many reviews they have, and then so you.
Kyle will sift through the reviews
Oh.
and throw out some oddballs if it doesn't, pertain to like the food quality, and it's like they had a bad server, so he'll throw that out and he'll recalculate the whole rating system. There's way too much going on in there. About
Yeah, like
this.
if you just had a bad experience because your server was slow, but the food is really excellent, and they don't have as many reviews, I'll give you a chance, or to go from there.
Which is legit. Like when you read an Amazon review and they reviewed it 1 star because the delivery driver put it in their bushes. Like that has nothing to do with
Come on.
the product.
The quality of the product. Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't review that for the product.
When I'm making a Yelp review that way, like if I had a horrible experience, like the businesses ran bad, I won't normally like, hey, it's busy or the server's bad. But if like the overall business is just like they got something to work on, I'll give a bad review. I'll start at the top. Hey, this is not about the food. They need to fix this issue because this is terrible, right? Like they canceled my reservation for no reason, or I went and they were closed. Like figure it out.
Right.
But I'll caveat that, like, hey, I want you to know I didn't really get a full experience, so I can't be honest about the steak was amazing. So
Yeah, that is an interesting thing. Craig, you have more perspective on this than Kyle and I, but that's an interesting thing in our society today, the ability for all of us to voice our opinions, and for many, many people.
Instantly.
And then for it to be available to so many other people and people we don't know, in just headlines or 2 sentences about an experience. And then we weigh that as consumers, as people that are, whether it's a business or an experience or a political thing, or, just we have this voice now that wasn't true before. If you couldn't get on TV or didn't have a newspaper column, because you were legit journalists and had readers and were sensible and had editors. And, that's just different now. There's a bunch of good with that, right?
In
but
its
there's
purest,
also a bunch of negative.
Oh, for sure there's negative. In its purest form, that kind of stuff is actually a very helpful tool. You find out, what you would learn the hard way, you find out the easy way, learning from somebody else's experience. But unfortunately, human nature being what it is, and people having agendas, good, bad, or otherwise, they start using that to further their agenda, whether it's Yelp reviews or Google reviews or social media or whatever it is.
Yeah.
This instant news cycle, this instant opinion cycle, unfortunately, is just being corrupted by the people that are abusing it. And again, there's a lot of good that's there, but it's just getting overlaid with all these agendas and this outrage and this cancel culture and all that stuff. It's just, unfortunate.
I don't know about cancel culture. You can't just cancel people. You could fire people or not hire people. You can't just go around canceling people. Nobody, right? Like, what am I missing here on this? Like, oh, we're a cancel culture. We're gonna cancel this person, or we're gonna cancel that thing.
It's just a phrase. It's a way to refer to people's dismissiveness of other people they don't agree with.
yeah, I
Right,
think
and
it's.
then what if I totally reject your dismissiveness and it makes no bearing on your opinion?
But I think
didn't
it's
ask for your
to
opinion.
Craig's point. We have a collective as a society, or even a digital community. We have this collective gang mentality that we go, hey, because of this, or this business stands for this, or this person, like, we are going to publicly shun them, and socially, through media outlets, shun them and tarnish their reputation and quote unquote cancel them. Like, you need to think badly about this person because I had a bad experience, or I heard them say this thing, and now let's get the mob after them and we cancel them. And so I think that's the dangerous side to Craig, to what you're saying, is the snowball effect of what we've created in our reviewing and opinions and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's always been a thing. It's just that we've put a little fuel on the fire.
Well, that's what the Jews did to Jesus.
Yep.
They tried to cancel him. They thought they
They
won.
did.
And they lost horribly.
That's a good point.
They were actually just following the divine plan of what God was trying to do. And they're like, we're going to cancel him and get the gang riled up, get the mob mentality going, and we're just going to make a thing happen. Yeah. So that's the part I guess I get a little bit just disappointed in, is the people like, are you personally offended? No, but someone is, and I'm going to pick that up, and we're going to get after this thing. And like, it's not what are you doing with your life, like the purpose and your energy, and you're trying to hate on someone or be dismissive, and it's like, we're not canceling people. Let's understand that everyone's an image bearer of the Creator and treat them with a little more respect and dignity, even if we disagree, even if they've done something that's horrible and maybe evil. It's just a different response, I guess, as a Christ follower than other people would have.
Right.
So, anyways, try to segue here to John, as we're looking at the eyewitness account of John and the life of Christ and who Jesus really is and what it means in our life, like how we respond to people we disagree with, and whether we can cancel them or, I don't know, like Jesus said, pray for our enemies and love them, and they want to take stuff from us, and God says, great, give them your coat and your shirt and your jacket, walk with them an extra mile to serve people. So we have this thing that we've been trying to get to, Kyle.
Yeah,
we've been trying to get to for like a month.
I was excited about the tail end of John 20, and then we've taken a little bit of break. I was on vacation last week. I was like, oh, I'm bummed. I'm going to miss out on some of the insight that I wanted to give towards Thomas. And then I was pleasantly surprised / disappointed when you guys went backwards last week and not forwards.
We didn't go backwards.
You went backwards for sure.
We did?
Yep.
Is there a written rule somewhere that you can't go backwards?
No, not at all. I was just like, oh, they're going to move forward. Nope, they went backwards.
Or are we on an exact timeline?
Can we
Not
bring
at
up
all.
John chapter 2
yeah,
today?
let's do it. So I'm actually,
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you. I was
We
like,
waited
hey,
for you.
I get to talk about.
We're going to talk about doubt, and I think the doubt cousin is fear and disbelief, and I think that's a super relevant topic for all of us. And
Absolutely.
Thomas has this experience, as we talked a lot about last time, as Jesus showed up to, does it say? Just a bunch of disciples.
They're in a room with the doors locked.
Yeah, one evening on the first day, verse 19 of chapter 20, the disciples were together. So there's a good group of them, and Jesus shows up, and he's, peace be with you. And then we had talked about the forgiveness of sin thing. So they have this experience.
Yeah, and so we've
But
kind of
Thomas
been
doesn't.
we've been talking about this. Jesus has had multiple experiences now in his resurrected form, communicate with people, and I think we're assuming that he's had that experience with all of the 12 except for Thomas.
Seems
So
like
the
it.
disciples are used, all this kind of stuff. So in my understanding, he's appeared to at least his closest 11, and Thomas, for one reason or another, wasn't there. And so
Or
John
10. Or 10.
Yeah, 10. That's a good point.
We
Yeah.
lost one along the way.
And so Thomas doesn't have that experience, and he gets told, verse 25, we've seen the Lord. We've seen the resurrected Jesus. He's alive. And Thomas is like, yeah, I don't believe it unless I see the nail wounds in his hands and put my fingers in them and place my hand into the wound in his side. And here's the thing. Like, so most of us who've read these stories or maybe been around the church world for a long time, or like we know Thomas as doubting Thomas, right? He's this guy who we're kind of like, I think a lot of people look at him negatively, like, oh, this guy doesn't have enough faith. Jesus later is going to kind of reprimand him. Like, bro, you need to believe. I think Thomas gets a bad rap.
Yeah,
I'm going to defend
sure.
Thomas a little bit here today,
Okay.
because I think what Thomas is doing is, and what we'll get to, is pretty amazing. I love this line though, and if you've read the Gospels, Thomas is kind of this guy. He speaks a little bit in like hyperbole. Like, you remember earlier on when Jesus is kind of telling him, like, we're gonna go die with him. Like, Thomas is like, I feel like he's just that all-in guy, like full send, like go for it. So he speaks this like, I'm not gonna believe unless I actually get to touch these wounds that you're talking about. Like, I think he's just kind of, he's got a big mouth, or like he just like overstates it. Like, really, you're gonna actually stick your hand in there?
Yeah.
He and Peter have that in common,
Yep.
but go ahead.
And I think that's part of why he traditionally, well, it's recorded, his doubt, his disbelief, and other guys' doubt isn't recorded for us. So that's part of why we center on him. But he also says, hey, I'm not going to believe it until I can actually touch.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, I could probably believe. It seems like it's pretty clear, like, oh, unless I see Christ like you guys just did. Because
Yeah.
he missed out on that opportunity. They saw him. Who knows? Did other guys touch him? Like, wait, is that really Jesus? Let me touch. Or like, are you a ghost? No, you're like the resurrected Christ.
Yeah,
So-
he makes a pretty definitive statement. I think that's why, again, he gets a bad rap. And Scott, you made this point in a conversation the other day that there's not this middle ground. And specifically, as we understand the original audience and the original language of this, the idea of belief and unbelief, those are both dynamic things. We like to think of belief and faith as an active thing, and doubt and unbelief as like a passive thing. Like, oh, you just didn't believe. It's the absence of belief. No, it's an active, dynamic thing. Unbelief. You're walking that way in unbelief, and that's what Thomas, I think, is doing. And so I think that's an important thing to be like, I just don't know if I believe yet. I'm not there. I'm not moving that direction. Well, you either move in that direction or you're moving a different direction. They're both dynamic activities. And I think that's something important to understand. And we'll see that even later as Jesus' words to Thomas kind of elevate that to an even bigger place. So Thomas gets his way, I guess. He says, I'm going to do that. And then Jesus shows up and says, okay, put your money where your mouth is. So after that, 8 days later, in verse 26, they're together again, and Thomas is there. And this time Jesus doesn't like knock at the door or do anything. He just like poof, hangs out in the middle of their
He makes a habit of that during the 40 days.
Just shows up.
It shows up.
And says, he shows up.
Wouldn't
he says,
you if you could?
oh, yeah.
Absolutely, I would.
It's like
I would too.
it's like Vision in the MCU,
Oh,
right? Just
yeah.
starts walking through walls because he's
Right.
not used to using doors. And anyway,
And he's like,
Yeah.
wait, what's happening?
and people are like, Vision, you got to use a door.
I can just imagine Jesus saying to one of the angels, hey, watch this. Watch
Yeah.
how big their eyes get when I do this. And then he shows up in a room, the guys go, whoa.
They're
Yeah.
just chilling.
Right? Because
So-
there's this whole spiritual world and dynamic that's happening all around us each
Yep.
and every day that we're unaware of.
Unaware
Well,
of.
we're aware of, but not even close to
Only-
like
only
1%,
vaguely.
I think,
Yep.
of what
Yeah.
is actually happening.
Yeah. So he shows up, and then he tells Thomas to put his money where his mouth is. He goes, hey, Thomas, here you go. Here's your opportunity. Put your finger here and look at my hands. Put your hand into the wound in my side. This is what you wanted, right? This is what you said. Don't be faithless any longer. Believe. And that statement right there, I think, again, is it could even almost be translated in stop becoming unbelieving and start becoming believing. You are going this way in unbelief. It's a dynamic, active activity. It's not just a passive sitting here. He says stop moving that direction and start moving this direction, which again I think is why it is an
And he
important
does.
distinction. Yeah, and then this is my favorite. This is why I think he gets a bad rap that's unnoticed. He doesn't have to, at least John doesn't record, he doesn't actually put his fingers in the holes and stick his hand in.
What does that feel like? I
Yeah.
want to know what that feels
I think that's
like.
why he doesn't. He's like,
Does he?
maybe I was just big talk back there.
I
Does
don't
the
know.
resurrected Christ have a wound in his side, right? How
Mm-hmm.
deep is that? It was a spear tip.
Obviously he does, because he says to Thomas, here, put your finger there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Well-
could literally
So-
put your finger in
So
there.
does he pull up like his
How big
shirt
was a
or, like-
Roman spear tip in the day?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Jesus
and
got
again,
pierced.
what is the resurrected body of Jesus? Does it look the same? I mean, we obviously in some of the other accounts, the road to Emmaus, it's not like obviously the same Jesus they knew, or maybe it is, but their minds or eyes aren't open to that
Yeah,
yet.
Jesus was spiritually like covering himself.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So like, is this like, Scott? You came
It's like
back
a-
and you still look. You got a haircut. Like what? I don't know.
jagged wound.
Yeah,
you know,
I think
from
about
a
scars I
spear.
have. I have a scar on my foot from surgery I had years ago. And it's like, in my resurrected body, am I going to have a scar on my foot?
I don't know, but it's an open. It's like an open, like a hole. You
can put your hand
finger
in there.
Like you've seen some wounds. Have you seen some deep wounds? I
Oh, yeah.
remember we were sledding at your house a few years ago, Christmas time. You've got a great, good hill.
Yep.
We've done it for
You
years.
talking about Wyatt?
Yeah, and the whole cousin crew and everybody's out, and we're sledding down, and then we do it at nighttime. We throw lights up on the deck and shine it down. Well, nighttime, it's like 4:30 when it's dark in the winter. Anyways, so we're sledding down. We're getting towards the end, and it was one of those moments where I thought like I was literally gonna almost die because of what I just witnessed. I push Wyatt down on a tube. You're down at the bottom on the four-wheeler, and it's, what do you think the hill length is? 150 yards, 200 yards to the very bottom?
Yeah, 150 yards.
Yeah,
probably.
it's a good hill. You're down at the bottom. We'd pick kids up, sleds and stuff.
It's about
haul
a 70-foot elevation drop, too.
yeah, haul them
it's
back
pretty
up.
steep.
So it's drivable, and it's after hours.
Mm-hmm.
The kids love getting a ride. Anyways, I shove him down. Wyatt's pretty little because he was maybe like 6, 5, I don't know. And he's going down on the tube. He gets spun around backwards, and over the I'm seeing what's happening. He's heading right for the back end of the four-wheeler, and I'm yelling at the top. You can't hear me. You're paying attention to other kids.
Yeah, I was actually waiting for other kids. I was on a little bit on the side, the uphill side.
Yeah, out of the pathway.
Out of the pathway, waiting for some kids to get out of the way so that I didn't endanger them at all.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking behind me for, there's no reason to.
And the engine's running, and just all the commotion, and Wyatt's not old enough and doesn't see it to bail off, and he just ends up running head first into the back end of the four-wheeler.
I remember it to this day,
And
feeling
it
the
jolted
thud.
you.
It
Yeah,
jolted
it jolted
the
the
four-wheeler.
whole four-wheeler with you on it.
Oof.
And I'm just sitting there watching it from way uphill and just thinking,
Powerless.
my son
Nothing you
just
can do.
died.
Yeah.
Anyways, this is the grace of God. Like, he didn't even black out. I think I ran down there, get down there, and he's just the hat, and then just blood is gushing, and it's just this deep wound on his head. Thankfully, we took him to urgent care, and he just needed a few stitches, and his brain is
a happy
intact.
ending to
Like,
that story.
it's the grace of God, because as a little kid, move a four-wheeler with a grown adult on it with your head. Anyways,
So
looking
you went
into
and
that.
you were touching it.
No, I didn't put my finger in it.
Is that where this is going?
That was looking into that's a deep wound. Like, it almost felt like you saw a skull, It was one of those moments. So
Yeah, so
I
Thomas
wouldn't
kind
want
of
to put my finger in that. It was gross.
And I think Thomas is kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it now. But the statement in verse 28, "My Lord and my God," Thomas exclaimed. Like, that's a cool thing. But I think this is where Thomas doesn't get the credit that we just kind of gloss over. Oh yeah, he doubted and he needed to see this. Like, that statement is one of the highest confessions of Jesus' divinity in all of the New Testament. I'm like, that he's recognizing Jesus, the resurrected Jesus, as Lord and God. And the verbiage he uses there is super, super powerful. And the way John records it is powerful, because John uses that word Lord all throughout his gospel, and he uses it in different ways. It's kind of like we use the term like Lord and Lady, right? And you think of, like, he uses it in like a reverent respect for people.
You use the term lady?
I mean, people do.
Okay.
I call people Lord and
lady?
Lady.
We-
Lord and ladies, welcome.
Downton Abbey.
When you get home from work, do you say, "Greetings, Lady Lindsay"?
Lady Lindsay. Lords and ladies, thank you for coming this morning. I say that on Sunday all the time. Lords and ladies. But John uses that in this sense of reverence for people, and Jesus obviously. But this way he uses the Lord is specifically in the resurrection account after that. John uses that word in a different way, the word Lord, and it's a divine designation for Jesus as God, as the resurrected Lord of the universe. He becomes more than Rabbi Jesus, more than a respected person of history. He is the risen Lord that they are now putting their faith in. It's the highest possible confession of faith in Jesus that Thomas makes, and it's huge. And I think that's something not to look over, because we go, yeah, Thomas is a doubter, but I'm like, yeah, but he makes this amazing confession and declaration of who Jesus is to him and who Jesus is, overall. And I'm like, that's cool. And Jesus is going to kind of say, hey, like, I know he gives him, hey, you should have believed before, and this confession could have and should have come without seeing, but now that it is, I mean, it's a really cool thing to think about, and I think it's cool that it comes from this guy Thomas that we can relate to, that we can understand. Like, yeah, faith is hard. Like, we now on the other side of the resurrection, I've never had the resurrected Jesus poof into a room with me and say, "Hey, you want to touch here?"
Poke him.
Yeah,
Hey, are you real?
it's you. And he's, so I'm having to believe, and I believe that he is Lord and God without seeing him. And that's what Jesus goes on to say, is, hey, Thomas, you have made a good statement, right? That's, again, another thing I think we don't realize.
Yeah,
He
verse
says,
29.
you believe because you have seen me, and then blessed are those who believe without seeing me. So.
You don't think Thomas gets enough credit, and I agree with you. And I think another thing to point out is that Jesus doesn't get enough credit in this particular scenario, because to me it's an example of him figuring, he knows where we're at, and he's figuring out a way to get us from where we're at to where he wants us to be. And so he meets us where we're at and helps us take the next step. And he doesn't always do it on our terms, but he is really good at figuring out how best to inspire and motivate you to take whatever your next step is. He doesn't just stay off in the distance somewhere and say, well, good luck, seek me and try and find me, and gosh, I hope you make it. No, he comes right where we're at and says, here's who I am, here's who I want to be, here's your next step, and he walks with us and helps us to take those next steps.
Yeah, Jesus is finding people. We don't find Jesus. He's always
Exactly.
pursuing us. He always has before the creation of the world. Like he's always in pursuit of us. And yeah, we've got a broken soundtrack where we say it's doubting Thomas. We should really just say, you mean Thomas the believer?
Yep,
The
exactly.
declarer
Yeah,
of
who
Lord
made this
and God?
amazing statement of who Jesus was as resurrected
That
Lord? Like,
Thomas?
oh yeah, okay, now I believe you told us, you pulled it off, and now I'm seeing it. I believe you are Lord. You are the supremely infinite being of our universe who loves and cares for me. You are my Lord. You are my God. That's huge. And so I'm like, yeah, Thomas, no, not that. I'm like, yeah, remember what he said after he did believe?
Yeah.
And like, how many of us in that same situation would have been like, you guys saw him? Well, I wasn't there. Like, what? You guys were crying yesterday because he was dead, and now, like,
Yep.
you didn't believe either.
Right.
This is another example of, and we have lots of them in Scripture, of just a transformed life. So he goes from doubting Thomas to believing Thomas. You have Saul the persecutor, who becomes Paul the apostle. Just dramatic 180-degree turnaround. Just story after story, and in present day, in our own lives. Very, very dramatic transformations. It's what you were talking about, Kyle, the dynamic. You go in one direction dynamically, not passively, and then Jesus comes and transforms your life, and you end up 180 degrees going the other way. That's my story.
Well, that's everybody's story who comes to Christ.
Yep.
Because we were dead in our sins, and then Jesus pursues
Yep.
us. We respond to him through faith. Then now we're alive in Christ, and that's the reality, and therefore our life is drastically different and
Yeah.
changed.
Yep.
So
That's good.
I wanted to jump off and talk about this doubt and this. Then I think along with that there's fear. Craig, you talked about like the proof that Christ is who he says he is. And that he is the Messiah, and he really did die, and he really did rise again, so that we can bank our lives on the reality of, no, Jesus is real. He is the resurrected Christ. So therefore, everything he says is true. The promise, the forgiveness of sins, the reality of we're eternally with him in heaven, and heaven is wherever Christ is. So, it's not a place. The reality of that we're his family, we're a royal priesthood, we're a holy people now because everything that's true of Christ is true of us. We're just blessed with every spiritual blessing. Everything that God has been, shared with us, and just all of that is true of who we are. And then we have these moments where we begin to doubt in life, and we want to dream big for our lives. We want to step into the things that God's put in our hearts to do good for him in the world, to bring the good news in different ways, to whatever it is for different people, to do something for kids, or for single moms, or for widows, or for orphans, or for a next door neighbor, or just something that is stirring in our hearts. And then this doubt creeps in. Right? And it freezes us and it paralyzes us in our stories, kind of like what we've done with Thomas. We like froze him, and that's your story. That's who you are.
You're the doubter.
You're the doubter.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
no, he's not. Like, he moved past that.
Yep.
And the step of action is the cure for doubt. And the only thing that I've experienced in life is to build confidence is like, try it. Like, take a stab at it. I remember running in college, just kind of running casually, and I'd run with my friend Josh Epperson, and we'd go to his parents' house on the weekend sometimes, and we'd run this 5K loop, the Lamolo loop. They lived in Paulsbo. We'd run down the street and went out on this point, Lamolo Point, and we'd run it. And he was an athlete, played soccer, was a phenomenal athlete, and he would just run. And I just remember just like, 5K, that's a long ways, and I can't make it. And then we'd get back, and he'd want to do like a core routine. I'm like, I'm dying. And so people ask me all the time, like, how do you believe and do an Ironman? Do long distance stuff. How do you go ride a bike for 6 hours? One pedal stroke at a time.
Yep. Everything's one step
And
at a time.
you're crazy. I mean, it starts with this mental weirdness in your head.
Yeah, a
and
belief that it's possible.
There you go.
And how does it work? Yeah, you put one foot in front of the other. It's one swim stroke and then the next swim stroke. That's all you can do is be in that moment. And that's what builds the confidence, though. It's like, I talk to so many people, like, for running. They're like, oh, I could never fill in the blank. I could never run 13 miles. I could never run a marathon. Sure you could. I mean, you can't with that mindset.
Yeah, I was going to say, with that attitude, it's like, yeah, if you believe that, you're already right because you've placed that into your into your mind, and you're like, yeah, I can't. Well, yeah, because you believe you can. That's your first step, and
Right.
then once, like, yeah, you get off the couch and
Because it's doubt.
Yep.
And how that paralyzes our stories, paralyzes what God wants us to do to bring the good news to people around us is like, well, I can't. Or it's such a big dream. It's so grand. It's so like, okay, I would need like a couple $1,000,000 and like a staff of team of people and a building and to like serve, what underprivileged kids. Like, well, who's a underprivileged kid that you're encountering already today? Just having more eyes open on that. And I think there's people listening in that would have stuff stirring around in their heart, and there's a doubt and a fear of like, well, what if it isn't true? What if it doesn't come true? What if it doesn't come to fruition like I think it would? My dream, my hope, and so I'm not going to take any action on it. And we don't know if Thomas took action, but maybe he did. Maybe he declared this, "My Lord, my God," as he's touching Jesus. And he just. Nothing like building confidence like trying it. You don't think you could do something? Try it. See what happens. Mm-hmm. But we live in an hyper-aware, reviewed, highlight-driven. Social media is the highlights of life, And it's like, well, if I try it, it probably won't work out like so-and-so. My life won't be perfect like their life's perfect. Or, I shouldn't try a golf shot because I'm not going to hit my driver like Kyle does, so I shouldn't even try it.
Well, nobody's as good as Kyle.
Yeah, maybe one day.
Remember that one time, though, we were playing Circling Raven, and
Yeah.
the first tee, and you drove it out of bounds?
I did. I got like a double bogey or double bogey, and you got a birdie.
My eagle
You got a birdie.
lipped the cup, though.
You were
my
very
eagle
close
chip
to an eagle.
Almost went in.
And then, but I think I birdied the second hole or parred it.
Man, you might have.
You were a couple
I did.
strokes
I
up,
birdied
though.
another hole. Like through 4, I was leading you. I have to just bring this up. This is the highlight of my short golf career, and it may be the only highlight I ever have in my entire life. So
But I like how you bring that up, though, because and fear associated with that, because we see it all the time, that fear is numbing. We talked about it a little bit in a conversation the other day. It grips people. It's paralyzing. Mm-hmm. And so that fear or that doubt, like I think they are very closely related, like it paralyzes us. And so we don't even try because we're scared of failure. We're scared of not measuring up. We're scared that it won't be what we think it is, or we doubt that will turn out. So we don't do anything. And we go, it's such a paralyzing factor in our life. And again, I think it's back to the way that we understand this unbelief and belief. It's dynamic. It's not just like, oh, well, it's keeping me here from not going. No, it's dynamically moving
you're moving in opposite direction.
In a different direction. And so I think we need to be careful as we talk about that and think about that it's not just passive, like, oh, well, I'm not moving where I want to be. I'm not taking a step forward. No, you are dynamically moving in a different direction.
Yeah.
And it's very dangerous.
By not taking action, I'm just going to stay safe, sit on the couch or whatever it is and not take action on that. We think that's the safe route.
Yep.
You're losing ground.
Yep.
That is risky. Your inaction is action, and you are missing out on purpose and opportunity in your life. And honestly, most of the time in my life, when I just take action on something, I find out, oh, it's not as scary as I thought it was.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not as difficult. Oh, I'm actually pretty decent at this, or I enjoy this kind of work, or that is helpful at serving someone. Mm-hmm. And we just need to get out of the paralysis of analysis and take some action on it.
Or we try it and we realize, okay, this is not for me, but that gives us the confidence to try the next thing and the next thing till we find what is us. Mm-hmm. And we find the lane that we really are enjoying and that we were, intended to be in. And so trial and error is an okay thing. I did that in the early years. I tried various types of ministry and realized, okay, well, this isn't really me and that's not really me, but this is me. And it's just, so trial and error, it's like, I think people, failing is okay. Like if I take a step and it doesn't result in, what I was hoping it would result in, somehow we think that's a failure. No, that's just a way
learning.
It's learning. It's eliminating options and narrowing things down until we find our groove or our niche or whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
What it means to follow Jesus, we've been really hammering home the sweet spot of
the sweet spot.
Who you are, how God has hardwired you, what you can bring to the rest of the world, your part in a scriptural term in the body of Christ, your role, and really what that means in light of like getting a goal accomplished, doing some work, and that you would know who you are. Humility is thinking of yourself less often, not thinking less of yourself. So we're all very capable. Everyone's role is equally important. Everyone's role just looks different. And I've said that like 4,000 times, and I think I only have to say it like 12 million more times because I think it has been for hundreds of years said the other way, that there are more important roles than others in the world, and especially in the body of Christ. But that's not what it says. Read Romans 12. Read 1 Corinthians 12. As Jesus said, no. There's one head. That's me. Great. Now the rest of you. And all the parts are necessary and important. And if one is missing, the body is dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And so we need everyone to know who they are, their sweet spot, and then to step into that fully. Otherwise,
And actively,
stuff is missing out.
Yeah, and you guys touched on it a little bit last week as you talked through, these interactions with Jesus, sending out his followers and commissioning them. And we're going to continue to talk about it here on the podcast and in our series that we're in right now. That's for us as people who are trying to follow Jesus today. Is again, I think it's so silly that we have created this hierarchy in the Jesus following world of you're special because you can talk to people on a Sunday morning, or you can play an instrument, or you get paid to do it, or whatever it is, or like, they have a cool testimony, or they went through some stuff, and like, we all have a story, and we're all doing our best to follow Jesus and to help other people find and follow him too. And I think the more we understand the collective way that Jesus intended us to do life, and do life together and on mission for him, the more effective we'll be at the active part of the positive part of following after him in faith, because it's so much better when we understand that I do have a role, and it's just as important as so-and-so's, and we can do it together. And when I help with them and when we do this thing together, we are way better at being this functioning full body that moves down the road further, faster, better.
You were talking about how fear paralyzes us. I was thinking about a group of pastors that I was meeting with yesterday, and we got to telling some stories, and one of the stories actually involved one of our guests here on the podcast. And I was telling the story about Pastor Steve Archer, who was our guest a couple months ago, or 3 or 4 months ago. And Steve, he was on staff of a church in Seattle, and then he went out to plant a church and had a bad experience. And after that experience, he wasn't even sure he wanted to be in ministry at all. And one day he got a phone call from me, and I said, hey, I've started this church down at Grand Coulee. I can't pastor that one and the one I'm at, both, so I need somebody to come. Would you consider it? And he wasn't interested at first, and he was fearful. I've just had a bad experience. I don't want to have another bad experience. I'll probably have another bad experience because I just had one. And I think, so sometimes for us as we follow Christ, it's not just the step I've never taken before that is fearful to me. It's sometimes the step I did take, maybe once or twice before, and it didn't work out.
And you don't want to have regret again.
Yeah, we get gun shy, as the saying goes. And so he was wrestling through that. He decided to go ahead and take the step, and ended up in over 3 decades of very fruitful ministry, did a fabulous job, loving a community and leading a church. And it was amazing. He would have missed out on that had he let fear keep him from taking a step that he had taken before. And, he didn't have that great of an experience, but he took the step, and God used him in a great way.
Yeah, because not that, again, to balance it, not that we don't have wisdom, not that we're not seeking God. It's not like we're just winging it and just whatever, we should just take action on whatever, but stuff that we know, like, okay, I can serve somebody, I can help, preach the good news to somebody in some way, serving them, loving them. It's, again, how I'm hardwired, and we kind of overthink things, and we kind of overanalyze things, and I think Jesus is looking for more participants than perfectionists, and our inaction is really a strong action, and we think it's safer and we think it's less risky, but I think it's one of the riskiest things we can do because we are paralyzed, we're not doing anything good, and we're missing out on these opportunities. Kind of as a metaphor, it's like we were camping one year, and the boat broke down in the middle of the lake, and if we just sat there and had nothing, took inaction, let's just be safe, let's not do anything. The winds were going about 20 miles an hour. So the boat, we were adrift. And we just don't know.
I'm remembering several such stories. So which one are you talking about?
There are a few.
There are a few.
At Sun Lakes, when Ben and I, Amy, and a few of the kids were in the boat, and We were adrift. We were being blown by the wind, and like Kyle, like you're saying, if we just take, it's not a passive thing. Like, okay, if we don't do anything,
Yeah.
we're safe. Nothing will happen. No, there is tons happening.
Yep.
And if we didn't take some action, and we tried, and we had the boat was adrift, and we were headed towards the rocky shore, and the only paddle we had in there was like a plastic paddle you'd use for a blow-up two-man thing. We had a boat full of people, and we tried to use that. We were going nowhere. We got out. We were trying to swim it. Yeah, so we said, we just got to ride this wind, let it push us into the shore, catch the boat before it hits the rocks, and then get all the kids out. Thankfully, that shoreline was right next to the road. So we called you. You came over with the truck, picked up the stragglers, and then we couldn't get the boat started.
And that was because of bad gas. I'd put the wrong kind of gas in that boat.
That is great humility, Craig. Way to own that. I didn't want to bring that
Not
part
bad.
of the story up.
It was a live and learn thing. I told Jeremy and I went up to the gas station with the boat on the trailer. And it's like, he says, I'm going to go in and get something. I said, I'll gas it up. And so I just
You
gassed
put
it up.
87 in.
I
The
did.
boat needs 92.
Yeah, which my last boat ran on just great. I probably knew that his needed premium, but it wasn't occurring to me in the
Yeah.
moment. So I filled it up with the gas that it does not run well on.
And once that mix got down to about 87,
Yep.
less than 92 in
Oh,
there,
geez.
she quit on us on the couple miles away from the dock.
And then the rest of that story is we went and got some premium, put it in there, and it ran great the rest of the
yeah,
time.
we got a slow tow back to the dock that day. It was like an hour. Somebody
Great
was
job,
gracious.
guys.
But anyways, my point is that it just feels like that in life. Like we let fear, we let doubt creep in from these dreams, these things we want to take action on. We think it has to be this big grand thing when God's saying take this small step, be faithful in the little thing, and watch what God will do and continue to produce. And if you're seeking after like a big headline or a spotlight or a big grand thing, you're probably not seeking after it with the right heart to serve people, to love people. You know, if as a communicator on a stage, on a podcast, if I can't share Christ with a neighbor in my front yard, I shouldn't be trying to share Christ with people, you know, on different platforms, because then it becomes more about me and my ego and what I'm trying to do, and let it be less about serving people, what I can give to them, and what I can give to them is this good news of who Jesus is, and hopefully they respond to God's pursuing of them and what it means to follow Him. And
The
that
good
way
news that
people would-
John tells us in verse 31.
Let's go.
So good the way he ends this thought there, that he kind of tells us why he's writing all these things down, right? Why he's telling us his eyewitness account. Verse 31, these things are written so that you may continue to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing in him, you will have life by the power of his name.
That's so good right
So
there.
good.
And that,
I feel like
that
John
statement
ended,
is,
and then he's like, let me tell
I got
one
a little
more
bit more.
story.
It's like, yeah, that's the
He
end of the
did.
book, right? No.
Yeah, there's an epilogue.
yeah, and some translations, they actually label it that way. It's not
Right.
in the scripture itself, but yeah, epilogue or postscript or whatever.
More thoughts. by John.
And that statement in verse 31 that he makes is not just a great statement for his book, which is, I think, his primary intention, but it's a great statement for all of Scripture. What is Genesis to Revelation all about? These things are written so that you may continue to believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing in him, you'll have life in his name. That's just so good.
Yeah.
So
It's
succinct.
the purpose of life.
Yep. What's
Yep.
the Bible about? Right there.
where
John
we-
20:31.
Where we find life. And so hopefully today you're encouraged with maybe take some action on that dream that you have rolling around, or the thing that God's been speaking to you about, and you know you just need to quit being passive about it, because life is just blowing you around, and you can take some action on it and step in and gain some confidence by taking action. That's really the only way it happens. And failure is along the way. Perfectionism is not the goal.
Right.
Being a participant is. Failure happens, and
How
it's
do you-
really a learning process. That's how we learn to, walk and
How do you
talk.
learn? Yeah, how do you learn how to walk or ride a bike or any of that kind of stuff?
Right.
Yep, you have to be willing to crash and burn a little bit.
Yeah, and that's part of life, and that we would not see failure as such a negative thing, but a learning thing, an opportunity to grow. Because we'll get into it here, but to foreshadow, Peter had some major failure, and Jesus comes along and restores him. And so I thought maybe it'd be fun too if we just share some of our failures in the next podcast.
Oh, yeah, let's just talk about
Let's
it.
talk about it. Be a little more transparent on some of the stuff we've tried and just kind of flopped, and how we recovered from that. And what we
Can't
did
think of
with
any.
that.
So
Can't think
I
of
mean,
any. Good. You have a whole like week
Well,
or
Kyle,
two to
Kyle, I
work
can
on
think
it.
of a
Oh,
few
yeah.
for you.
okay,
No,
never
I
mind.
can't think of any of my own.
No, it's bring your own failure talk, Craig. It's
Oh,
not bring
okay.
up other people's failure talk.
Oh, gee.
Like
Okay.
Why
the,
do I?
the time I hit off the first tee at Circling Rim, by the way, it was not out of bounds. It was in a hazard. So
It
I
was a
did.
hazard.
Yeah, it's a lateral hazard, red stake, not white stake. So I didn't lose the distance. I could drop up there. So by the way,
I just
Just for the
just-
record.
mine went over the bunker you were aiming for.
yeah, and I
ended up-
just got through it
And
too
then my
well.
second shot 3-wood was a miracle of Jesus.
That was a good shot.
And
No,
we're-
honestly,
And we're
we-
back to golf.
We're back to golf. It's pretty much golf season is full tilt right now.
Oh, I was thinking about another great place to listen
no,
to your.
wanted to
Oh,
say,
okay.
just
Sorry.
after about 3 or 4 holes, we looked at. I don't remember where we were. About 3 or 4 holes in, we just look at each other and you just go, "What is happening?" Because I'm playing like ridiculous, and I go, "I don't know, man. This is." And then the back 9 was the normal train wreck, but through 4, it was like a miracle of Jesus moment.
This was really meaningful for Scott. This is the second time he's told me this story. Like, in
Oh,
maybe
he
2
brings it up
weeks.
all the time.
Oh, I bring all the time.
Remember that time? I think it was through. It was either 3 or 4 holes. He's like, remember that time through 4 holes? Because he was. I think he was 1 under. I think you did like par. I think you might have been even par through like 3 holes or something.
I know through 5 we were tied. After 5, you started to take the lead. But I was beating you through
Yeah.
4 holes. I shoot over 100. Kyle shoots 79. Like it's
And I shoot about 75
yeah.
on the first 9 holes.
First
the
9.
same on the back. 9.
I did think of another great place to listen to this podcast. Now that it's spring,
Okay.
mowing the lawn.
Mowing the lawn.
Mowing the lawn's a good podcast.
Oh, yeah.
You get
I've
on
done
that?
a ton of podcasts mowing
'Kay,
the lawn.
'kay.
Yep. I'm
That's
with you
a good
there.
one. I think for exercise, I have to stay a little more mentally focused
'Kay.
until stuff clicks and I can.
Mowing the lawn's a
tune
good
out.
one.
Honestly, for me, part of why I run is God spoke to me about like doing Ironman, and I've shared that story in the podcast, and so it's a connection time. So it's really like if I need to work through like a message or some content stuff, I just go run and like. As long as I'm not dying too much, like God and I have great conversations. I'm able to hear the voice of the Lord much stronger in my life once I get warmed up about 4 miles in, and from 4 to 10, it's like quality Jesus time. So
I feel
just
like
how I
Jesus
work.
talks to me there about like you're gonna die. It's over for you. You're coming to meet me.
no,
Stop-
that's your
stop
doubt.
doing
Oh,
what
that's
you're-
my
remember?
doubt.
We just talked about doubt. And
Jesus
fear
talks to me when I'm in the hot tub at night. It's great. I'm relaxed. I'm focused. It's good.
on vacation.
Yeah.
In
No,
Arizona.
literally hot tub like every night. That's my moment. That's
See?
it's quiet. The stars are out. Not when I'm running. I feel like I'm just life is over. At that
How about
point.
when you're standing in the pool reading your book on the side of the...
No, I'm more thinking about Tiger and
Right.
his great career.
Not
Anyways,
listening to
well,
Jesus
thanks for
then.
tuning in today. I hope
That's
you were
great.
encouraged. We got to wrap this up.
We-
Otherwise,
yeah.
we'll just keep talking about vacations and golf and things of that nature. But hope you're encouraged today. Take some action, understand what it means to follow Jesus, and diving into who you are in Christ, how God's hardwired you, and move past some of this doubt. And ultimately, that you would move past some doubt on who Jesus is, and that you would put your faith and hope and trust in Him, because as we just read, that is where life is found. It's the only place, and that's the whole purpose of our podcast. That's the whole purpose of the story of Christ recorded for us in the Scriptures. So thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you, and we will see you next week.
You can help people find and follow Jesus by subscribing to the podcast, sharing it with some friends, and leaving a review so it's easier for others to find it.